Hello, everyone. Welcome to Consciousness Unfiltered. I am Dr. Anthony Mattis, and I am joined by my beautiful guest, Betsy McLoughlin. And we are both Access Consciousness facilitators, and we will be sharing the tools of Access Consciousness. And we will talk about today's topic of the day is, Betsy?
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Yeah. So tell me more about that. What was like life like? What were you doing before Access?
Struggling to survive.
How so? Say more. Say more.
Yeah, pretending that everything was okay, and meanwhile, just getting like more and more depressed and angry and not wanting to be here in this world.
Wow.
And um, yeah, and just like if this is what life is, what the frick is the point? And I
Yeah.
don't really want to be here.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty
really
intense.
struggling. Yeah.
What was like your day job? What were you doing to, create a life for yourself at that time?
Um, well, at different points, I was running a paper art store,
Okay.
and there was also, and I had been out of real estate, and then I went back into real estate as a realtor,
Okay.
and just really like I'd done a lot of different jobs, and really was kind of just looking for something that might make me happy.
Right. Right. So how
Yeah.
did you get exposed to Access? I mean, because were you in any other kind of like healing modalities at all? Or being in running a
Yeah.
store and in real estate, it's not like you get exposed to
Right.
different, like me being a chiropractor or was a chiropractor, but still a licensed chiropractor. I get exposed to all these different modalities every day. So how did you like come
Yeah.
to find it?
Well, I actually first was talking to a friend on the phone, and she drove by a place that was offering Reiki.
Mm,
You could do Reiki sessions or take classes. And I was like, ooh, I've always kind of been curious. And I had started exploring different things. So I went and had Reiki session and liked that I felt different.
mm,
And so I explored Reiki for a while, and then doing some other things like that. And somebody that I met through some online things, she was doing angel readings and angel card readings and different things. And she told me one day, she goes, I just found out about this thing I think you might really like. And I was like, oh,
mm.
what's that? Like I love exploring. And she told me about Access Bars. So I went and, went right online and looked for somebody in my area and went and had a session.
Right.
And I couldn't believe the difference of how I felt. Like I didn't have all that chattering going on in my head and all the
Mhm,
negative self talk that
mhm.
was pretty constant in my life.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my God, I don't even really know what happened, but just imagine if everybody in the world had this. And
Yeah.
that's where I started. And I was like, I want to learn about it. I want to find out. And I went and took a bars class. And every single time I got my bars run, my life got better. And I no longer, I started releasing the terrible self hatred and judgment and depression and all of those body pains and so many things that I thought that was just going to be my life forever.
Wow. And that
Yeah.
takes a lot of courage. I mean, again, it's not like you were really exposed to a lot of different things. It just goes to show like how different you are and how different you
Mm,
are willing to be. And, most
mm,
people, when they're struggling with the kind of things you're struggling with, will
yeah.
go and choose the traditional path, and
Yeah.
end up being put on anti-anxiety meds
Oh,
or antidepressants. Did you go down
I
that route at
I
first?
I absolutely did. And
Interesting.
I was
Yep.
just like, I didn't like how the medication made me feel. And I also got tired of hearing myself say the same thing week after week after week after week. And I'm like,
Interesting.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm a little better, but there's got to be more, and so that's what started this, discovery
Right.
of
Well, it's
something that worked
interesting.
for me. Yeah.
Something that I've observed, over how God knows how long I've just been in the healing profession. Because before I was a chiropractor, I was a personal trainer. So I've worked with people, I've worked with bodies. And one thing that I've noticed is
Yeah.
that, they always talk about they prescribe these medicines to people who have chemical imbalances and all that. But my
Mhm.
question was always like, well, what causes the chemical imbalance? Like, if we can get to the cause of the chemical imbalance,
Right.
then it's like you're telling me that people were born with a deficiency in Wellbutrin. They were born with a deficiency in Prozac. They were born with a deficiency in,
Right.
all these different things. And so I felt like it was sort of like treating weeds, like in your
Yeah.
garden.
Yeah.
It's like never getting to the cause. And so, and for
Mhm.
those of you who don't know,
Very true.
the bars are these 32 points on your head, and it deals with these bars of energy that run from one side of your brain to the other. And when you lightly touch these different points, like Betsy said, they just tend to quiet that mind chatter, or completely eliminate it.
Yeah.
And we both know people who have been suicidal, and the bars has literally saved their life. That's from one extreme. And on the other extreme, it's just a very relaxing
Yeah.
thing to do. So that's awesome. What would
Yeah.
you say? How would you say your life, compared to how it was then to where it is today? Could you talk about like what's different about your life?
Oh gosh. um, so many things. Like I'm happy,
Yeah.
first and foremost, and I don't have all kinds of physical ailments that I was having of terrible body pain and the depression, the suicidal thoughts. All of those are like gone.
Wow.
And yeah, so I mean, even if it was just those things, but it's so much more. It's my life is rich and full, and it just keeps getting richer and richer and greater
Yeah.
and greater.
Awesome. Would you mind sharing some of the body stuff that you had going on that you no
Oh,
longer deal with
sure,
today?
sure, sure. Well, I had terrible body pain and could barely walk for many years and was diagnosed with fibromyalgia after, a litany of tests. And again, they wanted to just throw narcotics at me. And it's like,
Yeah.
I do not want to live on narcotics for the rest of my life,
Right.
and go down that. I was on him for a little bit, and then I was like, no, I didn't like again how it made me feel even more removed from myself.
Yeah.
And so, I just kind of, and I learned to live with it for a
Wow.
long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And I had migraines all the time. I also had breast cancer. So I had a lot of different things. And I was also at one point in my life weighed 500 pounds. So that exacerbated a lot of what was going on with different things. And
Right.
I used food as a source of looking for it to have some sort of comfort for me.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So lots of different things.
Oh, that's wow, that's like incredible, because that's not
Yeah.
something that's easy to change. So, I
Yeah.
mean, bravo. That's awesome.
Thank
Now, what
you.
would you say? Well, okay, there's a couple of places I'd like to go. I want to ask you, like, what would you say your go-to tools were in access? But before you answer that, I'd like
Mhm.
to acknowledge the fact that all of us, at least in the Western part of the world, we are trained to believe that the allopathic world, modern medicine, they're like the gatekeepers of health. And so
Yes.
when you go and seek out, care, and you're looking for some sort of most people tend to just take whatever that medical doctor says as the truth.
Yeah.
Well, they must know better than me because they
Right.
have the education. They were the smart guys in school, or smart ladies in school, whatever. So therefore, they must know more. And
Mhm.
so even with all those struggles, and it wasn't just one struggle, you had a variety of struggles,
Yep.
and you still questioned
I did.
the gatekeepers of health, so to speak. You were like, this got to be something beyond what you guys are offering me as a solution here.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of courage. And sometimes that's like
Oh,
a
thank you.
pat. Did you feel alone during that time?
Oh, terribly alone. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
when people start to look at you like you're weird, like what's Reiki and all that. And then this thing called access
Yeah.
consciousness, which is
Oh, yeah.
probably the weirdest modality I've ever done. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it works. It was the only one that really worked.
right.
Like, what was that like to like
Mm,
to not challenge them, make the allopathic world, and it's not to make the allopathic community wrong, but
right.
it is a disease care point of view, so to speak. And I'm not saying
Hmm.
all medical doctors practice that way. There are
Right.
a select few who actually are into like holistic healthcare. And
Hmm.
thank God we live in 2021 where there is medicine when we need it. But when that becomes
Absolutely.
the first thing, and then we have
Yeah.
this whole thing where the people who are actually trying to speak the truth now, this whole COVID-19 thing, they're being
Hmm.
censored. They're
Yep.
being ostracized from their community. And it's like they're just trying to present the facts. And so, but this was pre-COVID. So what so here you are feeling all alone, having all these
Mhm.
struggles. All you want to do is pump more meds inside your body.
Yeah.
Like how did you take that step forward?
Wow. Gosh, I'd never really looked at it like that, but thank you. Um, yeah, it just for me, I was like, either I'm going to check out, I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to kill myself, or
Mhm.
I'm going to change this.
Right.
And it was, and even having the thought, the suicidal thoughts was it was really a wake up call for me. And it was, if I hadn't had my son, I might have gone further, but it was like, I just can't do that to him.
Right.
He was, at the time he was still pretty young. And I was like, I can't do that to him. I really don't desire to do it to my husband.
Mm.
And it was, so in that, it's like, okay, I
How old
think you're
was your son?
stronger. You're stronger than you think you are. I'm sorry, what?
How old was your son at that time?
Oh gosh. 6, 7, 8, in there
Okay.
when
Wow.
when it really first started
Gotcha.
becoming way more of a thing in my life.
Okay.
Um, and it's like, okay, I think you're stronger than you think you are. And not knowing the tools at the time, but I basically was the energy of universe, help me, show me something. There's got to be something different.
Mhm.
Please show me.
Mhm.
And it was a long winding path to get to where that is. And so then when I was on that conversation and my friend said, oh, there's a Reiki place, and my whole body was like, boom,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to that. Boom. And it was the same thing when somebody told me about access bars,
Right.
and I was like, okay, let me just see. And so being a seeker, I've never looked at it like this, but yeah, being a seeker, and in that, when it was something that worked and way differently, I didn't really have expectations, which
Mhm.
also I think was a great thing. I just went in to see what it was.
Mhm.
And then starting to learn how to listen to my body and what she was asking for, so that was kind of the start of this. And then just what a gift it's been in my world.
Awesome. So access bars was one of your big go-to tools
Oh,
that you used
absolutely.
along the way. What else would you
Yeah,
say? What tools could you share with like the listeners about that?
sure.
Tools that you use to actually keep you going, so that even
Yeah.
because look, you had a lot of different things going on. They didn't all
Yep.
change overnight, right?
No.
So, just like the rest of us, there's doubt along the way, right? But you
Sure.
knew something told you that there was something profound about this work and that you needed to keep going. On top of
Yes.
that, there are so many different available resources within Access Consciousness. Access Bars is just one of them. That's like sort of like where you
Yes.
start. So, what were some of the other tools you incorporated in your life from that beginning up till now that kept you going and actually got you to a place where not only were you surviving but thriving?
Yeah, great question. Well, the one of the first things I did was find the book Being You, Changing the World by Dr. Dane here.
Mm.
And I like read that book voraciously. And there were so many pages. I'm reading it going, oh my God, this is what I always knew was around. And I thought I was crazy and nobody else had these thoughts. And I'd flip the page and then there'd be another clearing or story that Dr. Dane had written. And I was just like, oh my God. And even just talking about it now, I'm getting chills. And it was just so that, and I started playing with some of the questions and the tools in that book. And so kind of did that concurrently with taking some bars classes and becoming a bars facilitator and learning so much about the tools. And so it was getting my bars run regularly. For some reason, that word is hard for me to say.
I know. I get tongue tied on that one too.
And then playing with the questions. And when I first heard the clearing statement, I was like, I'm not
Mm,
saying that. That's the weirdest thing ever. That is just blah, blah. And then I was like, okay,
me
well,
too.
the other things that you've been doing really haven't been working. So what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
Right. So when I stopped resisting this, and the more stories I heard about the change that access can contribute to people,
Right.
I was like, okay, well, if it worked for them, and then Dr. Dane, went from planning his suicide to,
Right.
where he is today, which is a complete different person and different life. And so many people have had those same kinds of things. I'm like, okay, let's just try this. Let's just try one. So some of my favorites are the question, like what else is possible?
Mm,
With no matter what is showing up, like something where you think you can't change it, it's impossible. As soon as you realize you have that point of view, you can ask yourself, well, I wonder what else is possible here,
hmm.
or what else is possible beyond what I think is impossible. So I would play with those and then just kind of let the questions go out into the universe,
Hmm.
and then be willing to be delightfully surprised.
Yeah. Well, there's a famous saying that's in a lot of different religious books all over the world, and it's ask and you shall receive, but no one really
Mhm,
told you or explained to you how that may show up or work. And one of the things we
mhm,
learn in Access, as you know, is learn to live in and ask the question. Because when you ask a question, you have to actually activate the quantum entanglements of the universe, and the universe will rearrange itself for you if you stay in and ask the question. And that's a hard muscle to build. But when you're at bottom, sometimes it's like, it's like, let's just try and see what happens, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Change
Yeah,
your
and
life dynamically.
it totally did. And the other one, that I say all the time is, how does it get better than this?
Mm,
How can it get even better than this?
mm,
For the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. Like, you just keep
yeah,
asking. And
right.
again, that is inviting the quantum entanglements to show you.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, for those of you, Betsy mentioned something about the clearing statement. If you want to go check that out, you can go to www.theclearingstatement.com. You can learn all about sort of like the energetics of what the words actually mean. If you hear it for the first time without sort of having a background, it is sort of like you may have the same point of view that Betsy and I did. Like, this is a really weird thing to say. I don't know if I'm going to say this. Let me just do the bars,
Yeah.
but, and then we both got over our points of view once we understood what it actually meant. And it's pretty
Mhm.
powerful. And it
Yeah.
has this magical way of undoing those places that lock you up. And no matter how hard you try cognitively, unconsciously, with unconscious techniques, with therapy, whatever, you can't quite access and change it. But the clearing statement gets to those places,
Yeah.
and it creates that space for us to actually have more choice. So how can
Amazing.
people find you?
Oh, thank you. Well, my website is www.creatingyumminess.com.
Nice.
And my email is accessbetsy, Betsy, @gmail.com. And I'm on Facebook and all over.
Sweet. Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, you sure have a lot to share and contribute to people in the world, and you are a gift. You and I have known each other, God knows, I don't know, 7 years, I don't know, 8 years, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, I
It
think
feels like a
so. It
hundred
goes
thousand years.
quick.
And we've both watched
Yeah.
each other grow dynamically from using the
Hmm.
tools, and we've been very humbled along the way too. A consciousness is not always
Absolutely.
easy. And if you want warm and fuzzy, probably not the modality for you. However, you want something to change something that you haven't been able to change, then
Yeah,
you may want to explore this. And
that's a great
so,
point. It's like if if you're willing to do the work,
mhm,
and even for me, like when I'm in a crunchy, uncomfortable place, I'm like, okay, just keep going. You're going to get to the other side of it, and on the other side is
yeah.
just, yeah, such beauty.
In Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Conscious, just did a call called the undesired truth, that like you're not willing to have. And that's the cool thing about when you're doing consciousness, is like there's going to be some things you're going to have to look at if you're really
Yep.
looking for that change. Like that, it's like an undesired truth. It's like, ooh, I got to look at that part about me,
Yeah.
but that's where vulnerability comes in. And if you're
Yep.
willing to see it as an interesting point of view, then you're actually able to change it, because it's that thing that you haven't been willing to look at that's holding you back from having all of you. And
Yeah,
that's what goes back to
absolutely.
being you changing the world. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the book that I mentioned earlier is in a lot of languages, and you can get it on Kindle or Amazon or the Access Consciousness website.
sweet.
And there's also an audio version if you like to listen to things. And it is just such a phenomenal book. So if anybody's
Awesome.
interested, if it's pulling you at all, that's where you could find it. And there's lots of other great books. And like Anthony mentioned, tons of free resources out there on YouTube and all over the internet. So check
Yeah.
it out if it's drawing or pulling at you at all.
Yeah, I mean, just to list some categories, I mean, okay, we talked about suicide a lot, and as some of you
Hmm.
may know or may not know, my first wife committed suicide, and we had 3 children, and that was sort of something that we got blindsided by. And so the
Yeah.
Access helped me personally to get through the grieving and help the children as well. And I'll tell you, the greatest medicine and therapy on planet Earth were all these different tools. And so,
Mm,
um, but it's not just that. I mean, it can help you in the areas of money. It can help you in the areas of body issues. It can help you in the area of abuse. It can
mhm.
help you in the areas of, if you've been labeled with diagnoses like OCD, ADD, ADHD, autism, all that kind of stuff. There's classes for
Mhm.
that. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Stuff about
Mhm.
the earth. I mean, wow. It's like a
Parenting,
library.
relationships. I mean,
Relationship. Thank you. I mean, yeah.
pretty
So,
much anything that you want to you would like to explore, it's
and
there.
it's in what? How many countries now, Betsy? Like 100 some?
176 countries. Yep.
So if you're
And
struggling in any
there's
kind of way, check it
yeah,
out.
yeah, and there's over 10,000 bars facilitators who are the ones who
Wow.
can teach you how to run bars. And there's,
Oh,
you know, hundreds of thousands of people who are considered practitioners after they've taken a class. So you could go get a session from them if you wanted to
nice.
check that out.
Now that's
So
great information. Thank you for that. And
yeah,
if you want to
you're
check out
welcome.
Access Consciousness, just go to www.accessconsciousness.com.
Mhm.
And
And then there's a place where you can search for a practitioner or a facilitator in your area. If
right.
there isn't one, you could reach out to somebody, and somebody will hook you up or come to your area or make arrangements for you. So
And Betsy, where are you
yeah.
located?
I'm in Maryland, United States, East Coast of the United States, and I do travel and do lots of things online as well. So
Sweet.
when we're allowed to travel.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you, Anthony.
It's always an honor and privilege, and I adore you. And we'll see you
Mm,
soon.
all right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.